Hello everyone, Dr. Dan Plews here on the Greg Bennett Show, and do you have any questions?
Welcome to the Greg Bennett Show, presented by Any Question. I'm your host, Greg Bennett, and I have just finished a wonderful conversation with the new world champion coach, Dr. Dan Plews. He's been on the show several times, and I've always loved our conversations, but this one, 3 days after his athlete, Chelsea Sodaro, just won the Kona Ironman World Championships in an 8:33 in her debut at Kona Ironman, was absolutely outstanding. You'll hear his the way he talks in this episode. He's just still on cloud nine, and I really wanted to get to him as quick as I could to just really talk about how in the world did they do what they did. They've been working together for just over 18 months. During that time, Chelsea has also had a baby and has been a mother. So it's been a lot to take on, but together they just did absolutely incredible work. Throughout the show, we kind of look at how they met and how they managed sort of being a mum and the pregnancy side of things. And then we talk about the training prep and the nutrition and heat adaptations and everything that they did leading into Kona. And then the mental and emotional prep and how did Dan get Chelsea so ready for the race. So really is just a wonderful conversation, this one. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. A little bit of housekeeping before we go on. I just want to thank you all so much for supporting the show, listening and sharing it and giving me your feedback. It means the world to me. Also a reminder to go check out Any Question. You can find Any Question, one word, on iOS or Android, or you can go to anyquestion.com/the Plews, and you can go and ask Dan any questions there. He's waiting for them. He has the app. He's ready to answer your questions. So go ask Dan questions. He also has about 70 or 80 answers already there that you can go listen to. There's almost 500 plus experts across so many different channels now that you can go check out. But go check out Dan Plews and ask him some follow-up questions to this episode. I hope you enjoy this one as much as I did. And remember, success comes to those who endure just one moment longer. All right. Today I am joined by one of the greatest endurance coaches in the world. As a sports scientist specialising in the area of physiology, he's worked closely with athletes who have won more than 25 world and Olympic titles in the sports of rowing, kayaking, the America's Cup sailing, and triathlon. And as of 3 days ago, he has also coached the Kona Ironman World Champion. He is seriously passionate about endurance sports, particularly the Ironman triathlon, where he's coached 3 athletes under the 8-hour barrier, and he just lives and breathes the sport. And is a competitive Ironman himself. And in 2018, he broke the amateur course record at the Ironman New Zealand by almost 10 minutes with an 8-hour 35 and won the age group overall at the Kona Ironman World Championships. He's also one of the most requested guests on the show. He's appeared on the show 3 times already, episode 50, 77, and more recently, January 17 of 2022. So be sure to go add those to your playlist. And if you haven't checked out his coaching business, please go check out Endura IQ. It's an absolute must. He's killing it over there. In this episode today, what I really want to do is just uncover just how did he prepare Chelsea Sodaro to win the Ironman World Championships. Mate, it's a huge privilege and honor to sit and chat so recently after the big win. So welcome. And thanks for joining me on the Greg Bennett Show. Dr. Dan Plews, how are you, mate?
Yeah, really good. Thanks, Greg. And thanks for the, I always look forward to your introductions. It was always difficult hearing them, but no, they're very, as always, very flattering. And yeah, thanks very much for having me back on so quick.
Well, every time you come back on, you've gone and done something else. You've gone and, last time it was like, oh yeah, your team NZ just won the America's Cup. This time it's like, oh, I'll go win Kona Ironman. Your athletes are winning the Olympics in kayaking and rowing. And it's just, mate, the resume just keeps building. Soon it's going to be half the show just me reading out your intro.
Yeah, sometimes I have to pinch myself. I'm actually turning 40 in 10 days' time.
Oh, happy birthday, Fire.
It's always nice to kind of reflect of what you've achieved in 40 years of life, I guess. And this one was I have to say, this is one of the most, of all the things I've done in terms of sport, at least, I think this is one of the the biggest because I'm just so passionate about Ironman triathlon, right? And it's been my life since I was 9 years. Well, triathlon's been my life since I was so young, and it's amazing. I'm still like pinching myself, to be honest. Chelsea messaged me yesterday and she said, "Can you believe it?" And I said, "No, I have this moment at the moment where I'll wake up first. When you wake up in the morning and you kind of think, was that real or was that not real? Was that a dream? It's quite a nice feeling. Then you actually realize, oh no, it actually did happen. That's it's pretty cool.
Oh, mate. Well, I'm just so excited for you and Chelsea, you both, and the whole team. Huge congrats, massive congrats. It's just so impressive. And like I said in the intro, what I really want to do in this show is sort of dissect a little bit just the journey and the how you did it. Does it make up, before we go there, does it, it's been a bit of a rough year with one of your star athletes that you started working with, Javier Gomez, who was just on the show a couple of weeks ago. And, you and I often chat not just on the show. And, that was devastating when Javier, who was incredibly fit early in the year, then got COVID and has had just so many things happen. Did this just help a little bit?
Oh, I mean, that's the thing about sport. And I was talking to Kate, my wife, about it, is that this year has literally had the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. I was, when Javi got COVID before, just before the World Champs in Utah, I was, as I was absolutely devastated, like totally devastated. Because I think as a coach, you take it almost as hard as the athlete does at the time, and he was in such good shape. And I kid you not that if he had not got COVID and seen that race, it's all hearsay. I really think I'd be the coach of 2 world champions right now. I think he would have won that race. Because I actually remember I messaged you did before, I was like, man, he is on fire. Like
you said you'd never seen numbers that somebody had ever produced like he was producing.
Yeah, exactly. I've never seen anything like it. So, but that's sport, right? That's why we love it, right? Because it gives you those two emotions that is just the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. And it hadn't just stopped there, because then obviously, I had that period where, Javi then got a stress fracture, totally out of nowhere in a really weird place, very, very unexplainable. And at the same time, I'd just gone to the Collins Cup with Chelsea and Pablo, and both of them just had shocking races. So, you just got to ride these things out, right? But to answer the first question, having this at the end of the year is just amazing. It's just, it kind of puts everything into perspective. And even like last week, I was obviously I hold the age group course record. And
sorry, I didn't even mention that. I didn't mention that in the intro. You actually hold the course record in Kona too, by the way. Sorry, go on.
Because I was like, I didn't really, I was thinking, I really don't want that to get beaten. And but then once Chelsea did what she did, I was beyond caring about that. It just made everything fine. So that was good. But I thought it would have gone yesterday because it was obviously such a fast day. But at the same time, I think, when your course record's 8:24 and you've got Gustav Iden doing 7:40, it puts that into perspective that it's not probably that fast anyway.
Are you kidding
It's going to go at some point, right?
No way, mate. 8:24. I only did the 2 Ironmans and I would have loved to have done an 8:24. I blew it a piece. 8:24. Everybody listening is just going, really? In Kona, by the way. Like, it's that performance.
When Gustav Iden's doing 7:40,
I know.
Like the guy in, Max Newman, who was 4th.
I know, it was 7:44.
7 minutes quicker than Frodeno.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the fastest time Kinley's done in his life, 7:55.
Yeah. That many people just blew out the 8, it was only 3 years ago we were talking about the 8-hour mark. Yeah. We had half the men's field just go, we're like, oh. Yeah. Okay, so that was like the 4-minute mile barrier. I guess everyone's going to just go do it now, huh?
And I'd love to, I'm looking forward to seeing like Thorsten Radde usually does the stats. I'm looking forward to seeing just if it was a really fast day or not, or it's just the standard of competition. But I can't believe that many people have improved that much in the space of 3 years.
Well, it's interesting. Somebody asked me that this morning and I started to really break it down. And it was kind of, Okay, I do think coaches like yourself, a real Dan Lorraine, you're taking sports science and the training and the recovery and the nutrition far beyond that 10, 15 years ago, right? So there's a massive development in the science. Then you look at, the equipment, these bikes and positions, people are getting more aerodynamic and these running shoes, they're pretty great running shoes. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they're definitely faster.
And then we have noticed the conditions in October. We haven't had any of those brutal days. We in the last 5 years. Well, we haven't had the race for a while, but we haven't had those smashing winds where you're not moving at all, and then suddenly you're going like 60 miles an hour. Like we haven't had those days for a while. So there's probably a bit of a combination of everything.
Yeah, I think so. And I was thinking about this the other day. Like, if you look across the podium, you've got basically the Norwegians. So basically Dan Lorang and Olaf Blue, the Norwegian coach, they cleaned up pretty much 4 spots on the podium between them. So then there was me with Chelsea, and then I don't know who coaches Sam Laidlow, but
he was impressive.
Very impressive.
Now hang on, he's got a French flag next to his name, but is he British? Because I heard him speaking. He sounds British.
I think he lives in England, in the UK, but
but he races for France.
Yeah, funny. Okay. I'll tell you a very funny story about Sam Laidlow, and this I'm obviously massively kicking myself now. Is that just last week? It was this week. I was trying to find someone messaged me. I was trying to find them in Instagram because I needed to message them back for something. But anyway, I was looking. How I couldn't remember their name, and so I was looking through all my messages, and I saw a message in there from Sam Laidlow, and I'm like, obviously I know who Sam Laidlow is now, and I was
you and me both, mate.
But I knew before. I knew who he was before Kona, of course. And I'm like, when did Sam Laidlow message me? So I looked at it, and he in 2019 he messaged me asking for some support, and I don't know if I didn't see it or my admin team just breezed through. But anyway, basically he was pretty much ignored. Yeah. So unfortunately, I was like, oh, sorry, Sam. I actually messaged him before the race and went, oh, sorry, I just seen this and I really didn't mean to ignore you.
Yeah, it was one of those ones that got away from me. I actually think...
I hope you weren't, hope you're not offended. But he goes, oh yeah, it turns out that he actually did our low carb nutrition course back in 2019.
Oh, did he really? There you go. There you go. You did play your part.
Yeah, well, I asked. It depends how much he implemented. So, that was a funny story from last week. And
mate, I think his performance. I mean, there was so much. We were expecting, Gustav and Christian to deliver. It was kind of the way they've been rocking and rolling this last couple of years. We really were expecting it. But Sam, that 4:04 bike split to back it up with a 2:44 marathon.
I know.
With his 48:15 swim, by the way, he was out. Was he out of the water first or second? He was right. He might have led the swim.
Second, yeah. I mean, as everyone knows, like he did to be on your own on the front doing that kind of bike split. It's just. I was thinking he was never. I think we were going to be seeing like a 3-hour plus marathon.
Here's one for you. I got a text from Simon Whitfield as we're watching it. We're geeking out on it as 2 old boys loving the sport, right? And we're texting each other, and he goes, Sam got off the bike. I shouldn't have mentioned Simon's name, but I will. And Simon's like, looks like Sam's got a long walk in front of him. And then he's gone and dropped the 2:44 marathon, and both of us like,
yeah, I know. Okay. Well, there's going to be a bit of humble pie eating because even the day before I saw an article in 220 and it was like an article interview with Jan Frodeno, and he was slating of Gustav Iden, and it's basically saying he's won the world championships that no one remembers, pretty much.
Oh wow!
It's quite. I'll forward it to you after. It was quite.
Ouch! Yeah. Look, I think everybody pre-race is all trying to predict. I mean, I don't think if you'd said, okay, Dan, the top 10 men are all going under 8 hours, you'd be like, nonsense.
Yeah, exactly. I know, but I always predicted Gustav over. From just hearing, I mean, I hear and I don't know how reputable, but just hearing a bit about the physiology and VO2 max values versus economy values, I predicted that Gustav would beat.
Still close. It was only 3 minutes at the end. I mean, and Christian still set the second fastest ever marathon in a 2:39.20. It was just that Gustav ran a 2:36.14.
Amazing.
With 411 bikes. Unbelievable. Anyway, we've dissected the men. We're
not here to talk about the men.
We're geeking out. We're geeking out on the sport as a whole. It's been a fun few days. Here we are. It's Sunday afternoon for me. I've just watched, all day Thursday and all day Saturday over here watching the Ironman races. And you and I have been going backwards and forwards for the last couple of weeks going, yeah, let's have you on the show. Yeah. What do you want to talk about this time? And then boom, I'm like, Chelsea wins. I'm like, we really have something awesome to talk about now. So I really appreciate you coming on so quickly after the race. What I thought I'd like to do is basically I want to start at the finish and then go all the way back to the start. So what I mean by that is I just really want to go towards the end of Chelsea's race and then go all the way back to when you guys first met. So let's talk about, when did you feel that Chelsea Sodaro had won the Ironman World Championships?
It was versus levels of confidence, right? Because when she actually got off the bike, I said to my wife, I did say, I said, she's going to win this. And then Kate was like, don't say that.
Yeah, of course. Shut up, you idiot.
because like we talked before the race and, we've been through her pacing strategies and what I thought I gave her very specific 10K splits for each 10K, what she should aim at.
Yeah.
And I said, you'll run between. Before I said, you'll looking at the data, looking at your training, you'll run between 250 and 255. And lo and behold, she ran in 252. So I knew that when she got off the bike, I knew that she would catch, because Daniela and Lucy weren't running faster than 3 hours, right? And she was 5 minutes. So I thought she was going to. I was pretty confident that she would catch if everything went to plan, but you never know, because it's only her second Ironman. So it's that last 10K, if the wheels really come off and, you can get a lot of muscle damage or anything can go wrong. When you go, right? And suddenly if you walk in the last 10K,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter anymore. So, but I think I knew she had it when she took that. I wasn't really getting excited until she took that right turn to run back down Polani. And then I was like, okay, now we can celebrate. Now we can
relax. That's awesome.
Exactly.
And were you just sitting watching the race on Facebook all day? Or?
No, well, I don't really. Right? I it's for the good of my mental health. I try not to watch. So until it gets interesting, I can't sit around all day. I'm just too nervous about it. So I got up in the morning and I went swimming with my swim group and then I kind of carried on with my business. I had to take my kids to look at a new daycare. And then by the time I got back, Kate was at home and she was getting pretty excited. So from that point on, it was just at the start of the marathon and Chelsea had just run into third place.
Wow.
And then I watched it all. Yeah.
Okay. So, mate, like I said, I want to start at the very finish, and then we're going back to the start. The finish. What was your reaction as she crossed the line?
Yeah. Well, Kate told Chelsea that Chelsea's the second ever woman only to make me shed a tear. To be honest.
Aww.
And the other person was my wife at the wedding, right? So very very emotional. So happy for. It's so much work has been put into it, and just to achieve such a dream for her. It's I'm still on cloud 9 about it. It's just such a big. It's just such a massive thing. So.
I think that for you, there's been a bit of with what Javier Gomez this year and all the kind of like we talked about earlier, just the disappointments, the pressure that almost comes with that. And there's almost a relief valve that, like, okay, we got one. I get to have a moment here. This is awesome. We've been working hard. The whole squad's working hard, and we got to have this one. And probably a little bit of relief. It's like, okay, that was awesome.
Yeah, and these things can often be life changing, right?
Yeah.
It couldn't change. It'll definitely change Chelsea's life, and it'll definitely, I think it helps with so many things moving forward. One of the most exciting things is that now I think we have so much more opportunity to get even faster because we have more there's more opportunities for sponsorship and endorsements, and we get to, she'll hopefully get what she wants, and that makes a massive difference as well. Success breeds success in that particular instance, and hopefully, we can spend more time together, we can do a few more training camps, and all those things really help. So it just means that we can just get even better. And I think, and like I said to Chelsea, like, she's 33, and I really think that's not the first one she will win. I'm sure she will win a few, because she just has all the goods, It's just, I think the thing is now, it's the big thing will be how she deals with going from being someone who wasn't even interviewed or in the pro panel before the start to now someone who's just, world champion and watched a lot differently, right? So
exactly.
It's a very different story, her relationship with the sport now. And I think it's been a bit overwhelming for her. And, I actually put her in touch with Javi yesterday, because I said, you need to speak to Javi, because he knows how to deal with this kind of thing. He's had success at the highest level numerous times, and he's obviously done very well in his career. And I think he's a very good person for you to speak to, and how to deal with everything that's going on for her at the moment, which is a lot of people, just media and being.
Oh, look, I reached out to her. I'm like, get on my show. What are you doing? No, I'm just kidding. Oh, I did say, do you want, well done, and let me know when you're ready to come on. But by the way, do you remember me about over a year ago, you said, Greg, I'm coaching this young girl, Chelsea Sodaro. She's 6 weeks pregnant. So it's more than a year ago, must be 2 years ago, whatever it was. You should have her on your show. It could be an interesting story. And then I was like, okay. And I met her in Boulder. We had a lovely chat by the pool. And I said, I'd love to have you on the show. But we just never, do you know what I mean? It never kind of happened. And that's my doing, honestly. I blame me fully. And then she sort of did the Boulder 70.3 and came sixth. And then she went to the Collins Cup. And I think she came sixth there as well, I think, last year. And I was like, she's getting it now, And I still didn't, obviously it would have been great now if I could have been sitting there going, I interviewed her last year, but I didn't. So now I have to wait my turn like everybody else. I'm in the queue now. So when you speak to her, say, Greg's wanting to jump the queue. Yeah.
I'll put in a good word for you. How's that?
I know. Look, she's so sweet. She came onto the Any Question platform, which I've been building with Ed Baker, who you were also coaching when Ed was really focused on the Ironman. And she's been fantastic on there. So I did get to meet her, as she jumped on the platform as well and has answered lots of questions there. So it's been great. But this idea of being an underdog, going in and racing and then coming in now with a target on your back, it is an interesting, it's different now, and the biggest difference will be the sponsorships that she signs and how much pressure she puts on herself for those kind of dollar amounts.
I mean, this is kind of, I feel this is something that will have to be kind of, when I think about the things that we want to build in the next year and things of like focal points, I think keeping her grounded and just true to her roots is going to be a real major one. I think it's really important to get the best out of her as an athlete and protecting her as best.
Well, and next year's Kona Ironman World Champs, when every sponsor wants to have a sit at a booth and do all of the, meet everybody and do everything. And that'll be that's where, having a good team around is going to be very important as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway.
We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Exactly. They're actually all good things. It's like, you know what I mean? I think it's all positive that she can be that person. So let's do this. Let's, tell me, when did you guys first meet and what was that like? So
we met about 2 years ago now. Basically, I was introduced through two channels. It happened almost at the same time. So her manager, Evan Gallagher, who's also the manager of Lucy Charles. He's a friend of mine, and we were friends. And when I lived in Singapore, I coached his wife, and I coached him for a while. And Elvin was managing Chelsea. Chelsea wanted a new coach, and he introduced us basically. But then at the same time, Will Clark from the BMC team, who's not in the BMC team anymore, he's also a good friend of mine. Chelsea was talking with Will, and Will also recommended me. So she got two recommendations at the same time of me. But I know that she interviewed a few other coaches at the same time. So she was just doing her due diligence, as I think all athletes should, is because it's a big thing when you get into a coaching relationship. So she interviewed a few people, and then I didn't hear from her for a while because she was obviously doing her research. And then she messaged me, she called me and said, "Oh, let's have a chat." So she said, the good news is I'd really like you to coach me. And I was like, great, that's great. And says, but also I have to tell you that I'm also 6 weeks pregnant. So, and I think at the time, I think she was surprised at my reaction, because my reaction was like, "Oh, that's such great news. Congratulations. That's amazing." Because as a dad, you're a dad yourself. It's the most amazing, special thing possible. And I know that when you've asked me what my greatest achievement is, and it still is to this day, like kids are my kids are my greatest achievement. And so it's just nothing but like, that's awesome. He says, "Yeah, of course I'll still help you," because I think that's where, as a coach, I always try and keep that perspective, is that like winning's nice, of course, it's great, but that shouldn't be your driving purpose. The driving purpose, I always try to reflect on just helping people, and as long as the most important thing is that person is a good person. I like their attitude. I think I like their attitude towards life. I think they're decent human beings, and they've got good spirit. They're kind and whatever. If those things are in place, and then it's about helping that person through whatever they have, the situation is at the time. So it was never, and it surprised, surprised Chelsea to this day, but it was never even a second thought. I was never going to say, "Oh, well, then that's not going to work." It wasn't, because once you like the person and you have a good relationship with them, it becomes, that's the main thing. It's helping that person achieve what they want to achieve. And,
it's funny, you've answered. I was going to ask you, was there something special about her? And it's almost just her being a really good person. It's like, it jumps out at you, right? It's like, I just want to work with good people, right?
Exactly.
It's a relationship.
And you know what? If I look at even my age groupers that I coach, and especially like Jan van Berkel, Yavi, as you know Yavi, they're just such genuinely amazing people.
Oh, the best. Those two are the best. Two are the best.
They're absolutely awesome. So these are the most important things. And when you have success, that's even better. But I think it's about supporting them in their journey and helping them get to where they want to get to. And that's why when even if an age group athlete will want to be coached by me, I'll always interview them, and they interview me, of course, as well. But I'm not looking. I don't ask them. It's nothing to do with. It's nothing to do with how good they are. It's more just seeing if I like, if we get along and they have similar values, and that's important. Because if I had an age group athlete who was like, "Oh, I've got a wife and 2 kids, but honestly, I don't care. I'm going to go. I don't care. I'm going away for 8 months, and I'm just going to be leaving them at home, and that doesn't matter," then that would not be I just simply wouldn't take them on, because I think it's about having similar values that makes things work. And like my age group athletes that I have now, they're awesome, and they're always like, "Oh no, don't worry, Dan. I know you've got along with your family," because they know what's important, and they're exactly the same. It's when I think about all my age group athletes, they're very much like that. So that's important.
Well, any of these relationships that you're going to have, if you don't have people that have the similar kind of values, it's going to be a pretty tough relationship, isn't it? We talk about that a lot in the business, in the corporate world, and our values and everything else. We're like, I want to have people that understand my values, and I want to build a team that we have the right kind of people.
Yeah.
I'm still amazed she told you, she was only 6 weeks. That's an early announcement.
Yeah. Well, I guess she had to tell me. I mean,
I get it.
I think I was one of only a very select few people who knew, right? So yes, you didn't tell anyone. But it was easy decision.
And then, so you said yes, you'll work with her, and then had this been the first athlete you'd worked with that through pregnancy and through postnatal and all of that?
Yes, it was. The very first. So I mean, as a result, I then being a researcher, right, and I'm an academic by heart, I got very much into the literature and tried to do a lot of understanding, tried to do a lot of reading around the subject, and quickly found out that there's really nothing to know about it apart from, it's just what I learned was it's just very, very, very individual. So it's about monitoring the individual and see how they're coping with various things. And so that was kind of the approach I took. I mean, I would love to say that I had something systematic that after 12 weeks we did this, after 18, after the first trimester, the second trimester we did this. But honestly, it was just through speaking. So many women have different experiences, right? Some people can't run within, a few weeks, and some are running right until the day they're pregnant.
Yeah, and the hormones are all over the place for some, and some just quite cruisy and they don't have any problem. I know, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's great. So some have really bad morning sickness, some don't have it at all. So it was just having very open channels of communication and adjusting the training and not pushing. I just said to her, we just have to, you just don't put any pressure on yourself to do anything. I wrote her a program for the first part. And then, as she got later into the stages of pregnancy, then we obviously just went to cycling and swimming. And eventually she was just swimming, and she was swimming pretty much up until the day she gave birth. But, the last bit, I was like, now I think I'm just going to leave you to do what you need to do, because I don't think I can't program anything anymore. You just have to do what you feel like on a given day, but just keep moving, just keep doing something, because obviously it's better for your mental health as well to just keep doing something. So that was kind of the approach we took. But in the early days, we did some pretty decent sessions, and we even did we even got her into the lab when she was pregnant and got some values on her quite early on. We didn't go to max, obviously, but we still managed to get those numbers to start with a bit of training. So at least then I had an idea of what was going on in terms of her physiology. So very early on that her running economy was off the charts good. Off the chart good. So that I kind of knew that she was built for doing well in Kona from that point on.
Was it always Kona for you too? When she said, "Hey, Dan, will you coach me?" Was Kona the goal?
I think it was always Kona, because we talked about it, and I have to say it's quite. I think I actually have a reasonable idea of the kind of the data and the numbers that you need to see to win the women's race in Kona, because if you look at the time that I did in 2018, it was only 3 minutes quicker than Daniela.
That's right.
So it's as funny as it sounds, it's very true. And it's actually been very helpful, because, I could predict her marathon time because I saw the data in the training.
So you just used your data and swapped it straight over?
Well, yeah, I could, because I knew what I ran.
Yeah,
I knew sessions I was doing, and I knew what she was doing,
That's awesome. So
she was doing things maybe a fraction slower than me in a lot of stuff. And, watts per kilo, I kind of, and then it was quite, it was actually very handy, I have to say. Yeah. And then she had Little Sky, and then it was the build back.
Yeah. And that build back, it was pretty quick too. I remember she was in Boulder. Skylar was born in April or something. I can't remember now, 2021. But she was racing Ironman 70.3 Boulder. Yeah. What was that? Was that 3 months?
Yeah, it was 3 months. Yeah. So the first, I can't even remember how long it was. I think it was 6 weeks. I think she took 6 weeks off, or, not really structured training after giving birth. With all these things, I never you should try and do the Collins Cup after you've given birth. These are all Chelsea's goals, right? And so I'm supporting her in the goals that she's decided to do. And obviously I'll tell her, if I think a goal's unrealistic, then of course I'll be like, yeah, that's not ideal. But she wanted badly to go to the Collins Cup.
It was the first time it was happening. It was big money. It was blah, blah,
exactly.
blah. Yeah.
So the only way to get there was she needed to race Boulder, and I think it was get within X percentage of the winner. And we got her in reasonable shape, and it's funny now because before that race I'm thinking, she's doing all right, but then I look at what she was capable of doing then compared to what she's doing now, and it's pretty much two different athletes,
Yeah.
But she was good enough to then get to the Collins Cup. And then she qualified for the Collins Cup, and she had a very good race in Collins Cup.
She
actually
did. I was calling it.
Yeah. Well, she literally was. She was pumping breast milk before the race, right?
Yeah.
Like literally just before the race. So these are the kind of dedication and the crazy things that were going on at that point. And then she had a great race there, and it was a massive improvement from Boulder, and we were quite optimistic. So the next goal was Utah World Champs. So we started building up to that. And, these are all very gradual progressions, right? Slowly building the load. And we would often have to, she was actually not coping a lot. I was looking at her HRV and talking with her a lot, and she wasn't really coping that much with the load a lot of the time. So we would often be doing 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because we were having to just push it forward. It wasn't really working. Bring it back a little bit, push it forward, bring it back a little bit. And then, unfortunately, between the Collins Cup and the World Champs, she got a stress fracture. In the end, it was just low energy availability from the, just training and breastfeeding and, knowing now that breastfeeding is obviously massively, it's very draining on the energy system and on your own nutrients, right? So we kind of know why that happens. And we really, one of the big turning points in how she responded to training was when she stopped breastfeeding. So it made a massive difference.
It's amazing how much more energy you probably have when you're not trying to keep another human being alive from your own body.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
I mean, it's like my wife Laura always says that, just like, yeah, I'm keeping another human being alive through my own body. Yeah. So the energy you get when you actually stop, it feels fantastic. Yeah. So, okay. So she's gone through a stress fracture then, which has probably shaken her up a little bit, because you're like, just as I'm starting to get going again. I even think from conversations with her and her husband, they moved from Boulder, was it to Reno, Nevada? He's a fireman, right? So
he is, yeah.
Is it a wilderness fireman? Like
I believe so, yeah. I believe so.
Yeah, and so they were trying to figure out where to live, and there was all of that going on in their life as well. I remember having a couple of conversations with her, so there was a lot on the plate, and, trying to make the dig to come back into the sport and all those big moves with a little one. But then, look, 2022 started. The goal was still Ironman Hawaii. Did you ever have Ironman Utah? Oh, she hadn't qualified for that.
For Chelsea, no, it was never on the cards, no, because she hadn't done an Ironman to that point, so she hadn't qualified. So we started the build, and I think Hamburg was going to be. Actually, we had a few early in the year. She did Oceanside. Yeah. She did Miami. Shocking races.
Yeah.
And you know what the reason was? It was swimming. Her swimming. So this is this is actually a really good story, because when she was we were both scratching our heads, because she would be getting on the bike and she would just not have any power. And I'm saying, well, I'm like, Chelsea, you did more than that in training. Yeah. Like last week, like how come you're not holding that power? You've done it 2 times over. And it's just something wasn't adding up, and we were kind of both scratching our heads. So, and then she went to Mallorca on a training camp, and it just so happened that at the same time, in Mallorca was he's one of my best mates. He's my longest friend I've known for 20 plus years, Paul Newsom who was a founder at Swim Smooth. He happened to be there at the same time, and I'm like, hey, Paul, when you're there and Chelsea's there, would you mind just taking a look at her swimming? And he's like, of course. He was like, yeah, no worries, sure. So he took a look at her swimming, and he said, yeah, your leg kick is way over the top, because she got in her head that she needed to do a longer stroke, less strokes per length. And Paul basically said, stop it, go back to a 2-beat leg kick, increase your arm turnover
to
around 80.
Get the cadence up, people. Get the cadence up.
80 to 90. Yeah, and lo and behold, that changed everything. So we owe Paul Newsom. Thanks, Paul. You're the man.
Big shout out, Paul.
Big shout out, Paul Newsom.
Yeah.
You can check it out. It's just launched a new company, Swim Common, so everyone can check that out as well. It's pretty cool. He was a massive help, because from that point on, she took her arm cadence up to 80 to 90, back to a 2-beat leg kick, and it just saved her legs at the start of the bike. So Hamburg, different story, because by that point she led the swim out.
Well, she won the swim in Mallorca too, by the way.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That was a quick turnaround. She won that by several minutes. Anyway, go on. Hamburg. Yeah.
And then she actually had good legs when she started the bike, and that was a big turning point for us as well. And then things started to kind of roll because she had a lot of disappointment, and as you know, with athletes, it's all about building confidence. And I think she had a very first Ironman Hamburg. We were very specific over what she had to do. The training, I would say, was 80% there. We missed a lot of sessions just because she wasn't quite. I always say there's aspects in an athlete's life where there's the train to train, and then there's a train to compete. And at that point, she was still very much in the train to train phase. Is that she wasn't the training that wasn't quite, she couldn't quite handle the amount of training that I kind of wanted her to do. So again, it was kind of like we would plan a session, we'd have to take, she'd go, no, we're not ready for that. We'd take another few days off. We weren't quite getting to where we wanted to be, but she still had a very good race in Hamburg.
Yeah, hang on. Let's not skip over Hamburg, because it was, firstly, it was her Ironman debut, and she got second to Laura Philipp, who had one of the greatest performances of the year. I mean, it was, Laura Philipp won it with an 8:18 and a 2:45 marathon to boot. And Chelsea, it was a strong field, and she came in second there with a consistent performance, but it showed that she could be there towards the front. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
she didn't drop the marathon that she probably wanted to with a 3-hour flat, but still incredible.
Yeah, and I think that installed a lot of confidence in the whole team, really, because especially on the bike, because if you look at the actual bike, Chelsea at that point, she wasn't really that confident in her cycling, but Laura got away from her at the start, and then the gap stayed the same the whole way on the bike.
Yeah, she rode a 4:35. It's insanely fast.
Like earlier in the year, a big thing that we also changed was we did a lot of work in aerodynamics, massive amounts, and that also. So between the start of the year and by the time we got to Hamburg, if you look at the bike positions, it's two very different people. We did wind tunnel testing, we did the whole shebang. We got a CDA down to an exceptionally low level, so that was also. These things are so important, and they also it's all just meticulousness and leaving no stone unturned, right? So that was another thing that we did, so I think because she did that good bike split, and then her run wasn't quite where she needed to be. I think we both. I mean, everyone knows, and I said this to Chelsea before Edmonton. I'm like, Chelsea, no one's as good a runner as you. Like, your running pedigree is better than any other female, she's running a 15:10 for a 5K.
Wow. Most of the males.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I think we both knew that if we could get some consistent running in, that aspect would definitely get better, right? And the swim and the bike by that point were almost where they needed to be.
So she's gone third at Mallorca, second at Ironman Hamburg, turns up to the PTO Canadian Open in Edmonton with another tremendous podium performance there. So the confidence is starting to build, I imagine.
Yeah.
At what point did you kind of say, okay, take a break, and now we're all in for, now that she'd qualified by coming second at Hamburg, at what point was like, okay, it's all in for Ironman Hawaii, the Kona World Champs, and this is the training prep? Or was Collins Cup still sort of on there as we'd like to have a good one there?
No, Collins Cup was never on there. We wanted to do well at Edmonton. Okay. That was kind of on the cards to having a good race there. Yeah. But Collins Cup, we trained straight through it pretty much.
Right.
She did a 3-hour ride and a 90-minute run the week of, so she was doing quite a lot in between. So we trained straight through that, but at that point, it was 8 weeks before Kona, and I'm like, this is crunch time, people. Like, we can't be taking any rest right now. So we trained straight through. After Collins Cup, she was a bit down after Collins Cup, and then she actually got a bit sick. Well, in fact, very sick, and it was at the point where we scheduled for her to go to Kona and do a bit of heat acclimation. So we got to Kona, and we were kind of still gradually building the training back up after being sick. Took the first weekend easy, but we managed, and I think this was a turning point that week. Even though Chelsea didn't think it was a good week, and I had to kind of convince her it was a very good week, she did a massive training block for 2 weeks, and everything went perfectly she hit all the numbers.
So how far out from Kona was that? Sorry, when you did that 2-week training block there?
5 weeks.
Okay, so you would go to Kona for 2 weeks, and then you go home 3 weeks out.
Yeah, basically, and then we come back again. Yeah.
She was in Nevada.
Davis,
California. And then so you would travel up from New Zealand, and then you did the 2-week training camp with her there.
No, I wasn't there. This is all from... so I was with her in Ponte Vedra for a while before the Collins Cup. We were doing some training there.
Okay.
And I went to the Collins Cup with her, but when the part in Kona, she was all by herself.
Okay.
So she wasn't all by herself. She had her dad was there supporting, and she had an age group training partner.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Oh, so that's an interesting way to do it. And is there, when you talk about heat adaptation, because it's something we both are curious about, what is the science behind that? And going to, because I mean, Hawaii's hot, but coming from Australia and Noosa hot, it's uncomfortable. Or I'm in South Florida. It's like Hawaii is not hot compared to South Florida.
Yeah.
But it's uncomfortable.
Part of me now, I'm sat here now and I'm like, do I really want to tell Greg all this?
Okay, fair enough. If you want to keep a few things under your seat, mate, fair enough.
I want to keep a few, because I think the formula that we used is a very, very good one. And I think it's a big part.
I'm always going to ask, that. So I'm happy,
I know,
for you to avoid.
I think what I will say is that, when it comes to anything, heat altitude training, it was something called the plasticity of response.
Mm-hmm.
So when the repeated exposure means you respond to that response more quickly.
Yeah.
So, if you get like heat and then you get out of heat and then you go back into heat, you respond, your adaptation to the heat the second time is very quick.
If you go to Kona or wherever you're planning to have your peak performance through the year, if you did somewhat of a camp, you went back and then you go to that place again about 10 days later, because I imagine there's a time frame you'll lose any adaptation that you could have had.
There's specific things you can do within the time that you're not in the heat, right? There's some passive heat stuff that you can.
So did you recommend like a steam room or sauna type treatment on top of all that?
Exactly. We did some passive heat stuff. Yeah.
And those protocols, are you training in it, or is it just sitting in there and getting your body accustomed to it?
A bit of both.
Yeah. Mate, I feel like I'm trying to peel back some layers, and I'm like, hang on, he's just one Kona, and I'm like, maybe I'll give a little
usually
bit.
I'm so open.
I know you are. You give everything. I know. But I'm going to keep asking, because I know the listeners are like, Greg, keep going. But when it came to her nutrition, and you do look at everybody as an individual. We've had these conversations on the show, and it's not black and white. And was her makeup one that she performed in terms of macronutrients? Was she performing better with, a higher sort of fat content diet, or is she somebody you had to focus more on the carbs?
So the approach that we took with Chelsea is, I actually wrote a blog about it on Endure IQ, so you can check it out.
Very cool.
What we promote at S Fuels, which is the nutrition company that I'm on the board with and a technical advisor, is this kind of right fuel, right time approach. So it's not just a question of like throwing carbs at the athlete all the time, or even like throwing no carbs at the athlete all the time. I think when I first tested Chelsea, the data I put the data in the on the blog, so you can look at her fat oxidation, carbohydrates versus fats.
Wow.
Before and after the right fuel, right time approach. So basically, it's about restricting carbohydrates at certain sessions for certain, like more of the lower intensity sessions. That would mean like, I'd say, okay, night before, no carbohydrates. In the morning, just fats and proteins. And then, at least the first half of the ride, we're trying to, not refrain, no carbohydrates. So just more fat as a fuel to try and shift the fat metabolism. But then when it came to the higher intensity sessions, then obviously we're then putting a bit more of the carbs back in. And I think, she was on a macro level, she was more of a moderate carbohydrate diet. I can't remember what we actually had. We talked about it early on, and I think it was like, 50, 30, 20 or something like that, 50% carb, 30% protein, 20% fat, or something like that. I can't remember. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember. We had consultations with a nutritionist as well. So a good friend of mine, Mickey Williden, who helped with that, and we kind of came up with a bit of a macro plan that we felt was quite suited to Chelsea, but it certainly wasn't your typical athlete, 90% carbs, 8% protein and 2% fat sort of thing.
Yeah. So when she's in Kona in the heat adaptation camp, do you have one specific workout there where you go, right, we're going to race simulate, especially the nutrition side of things?
Yeah. We did do a little bit of race simulation. I mean, we did a lot of that before Hamburg. So we kind of, because we had to dial it in at that point there. So the nutrition plan didn't change from Hamburg to... Really?
Even with the temperature difference? I mean, Hamburg ended up being pretty warm too, didn't it? Or...
Yeah, no, it didn't change. I mean, and I don't see why it would, unless you in a colder climate, you're eating a lot more solids, then you might want to change it. But Chelsea wasn't having that many solids during the race. Yeah. So we didn't really change it at all. And her carbohydrate intake was very modest. It was around 60 grams per hour, which is way lower than what you hear that's promoted now is 90, even 120 grams. And it honestly, Greg, it's one of my biggest annoyances of the sport. It just really upsets me because I just don't know how we seem to almost get into this competition as to who can consume the most sugar during race day.
Oh, mate, I wish I'd met you before my Ironmans. I know I took myself out with overdoing all the sugars. And
bizarre, and I just don't get it. And even if you look at the research, it's clear that you cannot oxidize more than, if you have a fructose glucose mix, you cannot oxidize more than 90 grams per hour. Okay, you can tolerate 120, but that doesn't mean it's doing anything. It's just sat in your gut. I mean, I wrote another blog on this as well. So anyone who wants to go, there's loads of stuff on the Enduro IQ.
Mate, your Enduro IQ is just, people are nuts if they're not there. It's like it's there. Things. Yeah.
So it just, and I think that's one of the biggest things is dialing in the nutrition, and less is more. I'm very confident of that. I mean, I always talk about both sides of the coin. If you can use the right fuel, right time approach to change your fat metabolism, change it so you're, literally, if you look at the chart and, again, go back, you can see it on this blog. When Chelsea first started with me, when she started cycling, there was not one point in time when she was using more fats than carbohydrates, not one point.
Right.
But then we changed it to it happening much later on, the crossover point was, past her, about what she would hold for an Ironman, and that's what you want. That's exactly what you want. You don't want to be churning through carbs as soon as you start cycling. It's not good for your performance, and it's definitely not good for your health. If you're that metabolically inflexible, not good for your health. And I think, that is another thing that, that holistic approach is not just about performance, it's about everything, right?
Mm-hmm. It's fascinating. What about, when we're talking about nutrition, when it comes to hydration, can you overdo water consumption? And I know we've discussed, salt and, sodium and everything else on past episodes, but, what's your take on, because I kind of see hydration and then overheating almost as two separate things. So what kind of protocols were you doing thinking about hydration? If
you look at the hydration research, there's two things it's called. One is physiological dehydration and then voluntary dehydration. So physiological dehydration is like proper dehydration where you're very thirsty, your performance degrades. And then there's voluntary dehydration where you naturally have body weight losses over the course of a marathon. Mm-hmm. And, we know that better marathon performances come when people lose weight over the course of a marathon. That's, the more generally there's a strong relationship between the two. The people who lose the most weight during the marathon are the people who are running the best over the course of a marathon. And most athletes can easily cope with 3 to 4% body weight loss over the course of a marathon. But we also know that what's another really good predictor is being in a hydrated state at the start of the marathon. So, what you have to achieve is you want to be as hydrated as possible and as fueled as possible at the start of a marathon to run a good marathon. Mm. So with Chelsea, she's smaller in Hamburg, it's just like, just drink to thirst. That in a cool climate, that will take care of itself. Like it's totally fine. But when it gets really, really hot, like in Kona, you have to start being a little bit more diligent with what you're doing. And I think a big mistake a lot of athletes make is they do the pre-post body weight stuff. That's complete hogwash, because it's not the limiting factor. The limiting factor of how much you can hydrate is your rate of gastric emptying. And we know that the rate of gastric emptying for most people is between 1 to 1.3 liters an hour. So if you're weighing yourself in Kona-like conditions and you're losing 2 liters an hour, which many people do, and you start drinking 2 liters an hour, you're going to get very bloated. It's going to affect your absorption of all your nutrients, and then you're going to get a lot of gastrointestinal distress. So with Chelsea, I said, just be mindful of your hydration, 750 to 1 liter an hour. That would be enough for someone of her size, within your gastric emptying rates, and that's going to be perfect for you. So, that's kind of the approach we took. But, bigger athletes might want to push to 1.3 liters an hour in the heat. But, just being on top of it is the best thing. But like going to, doing the pre-post body weights is a waste of time. And also, like, sweat rates change. So if you measured how much you were sweating in the first hour of the bike, it is not the same as how much you're sweating in the last hour of the bike. Generally, sweat rates go down over time. So, if you think I need to do 1 or 2 liters an hour because of my body weight reductions, then you're going to be well over hydrating by the time you get onto the marathon. Sloshy stomach, not absorbing your carbohydrates, start running. And I think everyone knows what the problem's going to be after that.
Sounds all too familiar, and everyone listening is probably nodding their head if they've had those feelings. What about then, when you think about the overheating? Yes, you can stay hydrated, but is there anything that you're doing in terms of, apart from doing the heat adaptation camps and heat adaptation in the saunas and everything else, what about on race days? Is there anything that you sort of advise in terms of trying to just try to stay cooler? Is there anything you did or advise athletes do?
I mean, keeping cool is everything. I mean, heat acclimation is the main thing, as you know. But I mean, one of the main things that Chelsea did was she walked through the aid stations because she said she was feeling very hot. And
her face was quite red.
It was hot, right? And she's running very quick.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at what makes people hot when you exercise, the main thing that makes people hot is metabolic heat production. Basically, if you are someone who has a high VO, again, another blog about this on EndurIQ. I'll have to send you all the links.
Send me them all. We'll put them in. Yeah.
If you're typical someone who has a very high VO2 max and a poor running economy, your metabolic expenditure is very, very high. So those people will generally get hotter.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
So if you've got a very good running economy, you're more efficient, you won't get as hot, because the main driving factor, as I said, is metabolic heat production, which is why when people overheat, the main thing that they do is they slow down to try and reduce metabolic heat production and therefore cool the core and cool down overall. But there's obviously things that you can do, like walking the aid stations and using the ice to lower the skin temperature and lower the core temperature. And these are all little things that you can do. But they're kind of like Band-Aid approaches. You're just like trying to stop it just getting too high before. But the main things is, heat acclimation, efficiency. They're the two key things, really.
Well, okay. Well, let's move on to mental and emotional prep. You're someone, like we talked earlier, that understands, value systems and that kind of thing. Were you assisting Chelsea in the way of talking things through? Obviously, even if you're an underdog, the nerves hit you. And what kind of things were you saying to Chelsea before the race?
Yeah, so I mean, before Chelsea does an Ironman, we got into this habit now is that I write her a very long email. So basically we have like main themes, and for this race was like, the first theme was like be patient. The next theme was conserve the energy. The next theme was ask the right questions. Like, is what I'm doing now
perfect?
affecting it positively the last hour of the race. These are the sort of things that I try and do. And then the last one was like back the run, because we knew she was running really well. So we always come up with these main themes that she has to focus on during the race. And I think if you're very process driven, you've got a good plan in place. I said to her before, these are the main themes. These are your powers. This is your hydration plan. This is your nutrition plan. This is how much you should be taking here. Concentrate on this going up the hill. Remember that coming down the hill is harder than going back down coming down the hill is harder than going up the hill. So don't think you're going to get to the top and it's going to be easy, because it's not. You've got to push the downs. If you can break it all down and have a good process in place, I think that calms the nerves to some extent. But of course, she was massively nervous, and there's nothing you can do about it. And
that's part of it. That's excitement. Laura always said, Greg, it's not nerves, it's excitement. I was like, that's one way you can turn it around.
They were my very words to her before the race. Well, I said, nerves just means something exciting is about to happen. So just, embrace it.
We could talk for hours, honestly, and I'd be prying away trying to get more and more out of you, I'm sure. But honestly, the way you guys have prepared, the relationship that the two of you had, I've heard nothing but you talk about wonderful things every time we talk about Chelsea over this last sort of 18 months or more. You've always sung her praises, and I could tell that you guys have a really great relationship. And just to see this incredible moment, the celebration that I'm sure you're still in that moment, and Chelsea, I don't know when she's going to come down from Cloud 9, because that's a huge moment. She had an incredible performance, 54-minute swim, 4:42 bike, 2:51 marathon, for an 8:33 overall. Is that the second fastest time we've ever seen?
I think it is the second fastest time, yeah. I think so. Yeah, Daniela, I think she's 8:26.
8:26 in 2019, and I think... and that marathon might be just shy of...
2:50, I think, is the marathon record.
Rinny's still got that record for the marathon. But honestly, across the board, an 8:33 in Kona, in front of Lucy Charles Barclay, who's second again, fourth time I think she's had a second place there. And then Annie Hug, who won the race in 2019. That's right, 2019. So, look, it's just an absolutely phenomenal performance. So congrats to you, mate.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I had a really, really splendid email from Coach Matt Dixon from Purple Patch. And he honestly kept on totally out of the blue. And he said the nicest things. And one of the things he said to me that really rung home is he said, as a wily old coach who's not really coaching pros anymore, my biggest advice to you is to just don't let these moments pass, because you never know when they might come around again. And
wise words. Yes, he's a very wise man, and I'm really trying to heed those words and do exactly that. At least maybe this month. Maybe it can be October. Can be a month of celebration. Mate, for the rest of your life. For the rest of your life, this was huge. Yeah. The rest of your life, this was a magical moment, and it's always going to be with you. And you're not somebody that's just going to go, all right, next, let's get going. I think that's great that you just really celebrate. You enjoy it. I hope you get together with Chelsea at some point. Between now and the end of the year, maybe even to celebrate together. I think that would be wonderful.
John, I'm going to try see if I can get her over to New Zealand,
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Reno's not a place you want to be in the winter training.
Have they opened up New Zealand yet, or is it still closed down?
Yeah, totally open.
I didn't think you guys were ever going to open up.
I think it's open to everyone now.
Everyone. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Are you sure? All right.
Yeah. Like I said, Joe, I think we're both pretty excited because it opened up a lot of opportunities, and now I've got some great athletes and two massive superstars.
You really
do. I'm going to be a busy man, and I think the big project is for next year is to get Javi on top of that podium. And I really believe Javi. I said to him yesterday, I really think he's capable of an 8:35 marathon.
I was going to ask you.
Sorry, a 2:35 marathon in Kona.
2:35. I have zero doubt. And I was going to say, had you spoken to Javier, and did he feel like, if I'm Javier and you're my coach, and we've been working together almost a year, but my year's been a bit rocky because of just random things, but then I see you coach one of the other people in the squad to a world title. Did he feel a little like, okay, we're onto something here. What was his reaction?
I did send him a message, half jokingly. I said, hopefully that gives you a bit of confidence that I know what I'm talking about. Just half jesting.
Yeah. I love it.
And he said, he goes, I always had confidence in you. He said,
yeah,
of course. But I'm sure it definitely helps, right? Of course it helps. And I think, it's a scary, I mean, when you see times like we're going put down yesterday, it's scary, but I truly believe that Javi can run a 2:35 in Kona. I really think he can do that. So.
Mate, I've trained with the guy. I've never seen anything quite like that guy. But mate, it's been really great just to chat. And hey, for everybody listening also, yourself and Chelsea are both on Any Question. You've already answered about 78 answers. So I want listeners to do two things. One, go and check out Enduro IQ. Download every single one of the blogs. Sign up to all of your coaching courses because they're all phenomenal. It's crazy. If you're doing triathlon and you haven't gone to Enduro IQ and downloaded all those courses, you are nuts. So go to Enduro IQ. If you want short snippet responses from Dan, also come over and check out Any Question, where you've already got 78 answers there. But I'd love you to come over, and even if people have follow-up questions and they're quick for you to answer, just jump on. And most of the answers are around, the average answer is about a 1 minute long. So people can go in there and digest some information that way as well. And Chelsea Sodaro is also on there too. She has about 70 answers as well. She may not get back to you as quickly for this next little period as we talked about earlier. She's probably going to be a little busy these next few weeks, but she is on the platform and I will talk to her in the next few weeks. I will get her on this show and we're going to have a lovely conversation at some point. But mate, this has been awesome. Thanks for coming on.
No, thanks for coming. Thanks for having me. I'll have to. I haven't looked at any questions since Chelsea's win, so maybe I've got a few questions waiting for me. I'll have to.
Mate, you've got loads of questions. Even before Chelsea's win, people are excited to hear.
I thought I answered them all.
Well, it's like, maybe you have. I'm just giving you a hard time. It's. I said in the intro, you really are one of the most requested people I get. The only other one that trumps you is everybody wants Lionel Sanders on the show. I've tried to get him on, everybody listening. I have tried. He said he would. It's just pinning him down hasn't been easy, but at some point I will have.
He didn't have the greatest of days yesterday, poor guy.
He didn't. Look, I think there's a little bit the way that race was always going to play out. You got to get that swim up and then his efficiency on top of it. There's a lot of things I look at Lionel and I'm like, he got so much ability, but I just feel like there's more we can do. And I've talked to Jan Frodeno about it. We're just like, yeah.
Even Jan Frodeno sent me a message on Instagram, a direct message after Chelsea's win. How good's that?
Well, Jan is a big fan of yours, mate. He eats your chocolate almond bar thing. What is it? What do you call it?
Yeah. The slab.
The slab.
Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah.
No, it's but it's always. I mean, that's one of the I can't imagine what Chelsea's going through, but like the amount of people who have just messaged me who I haven't heard from in a long time, or people who obviously Jan's pretty big time, and for him to just send me a personal message is amazing.
You know what I love about that too, because I know you're a bit of a triathlon groupie too, right? Like me, I'm a bit of a groupie too. I get a note from someone like Mark Allen or something like, that's pretty awesome. Like, we're both groupies. We're suckers for somebody just recognizing us that we think's awesome. It's kind of awesome. But
I know it is. It's a big top. One of the things that so Javi was in Spain and he did like a sportif with Miguel Indurain, and he got me a signed shirt from Miguel Indurain that says, "Dan, I appreciate your passion in sport. Yours, Miguel Indurain." And I was like, wow,
mate.
That's pretty big.
That's pretty cool. And you're also aging yourself. That's for everybody that doesn't know, Miguel Indurain was huge in the 90s. Tour de France.
Knowing what we know now, he was in the era, wasn't he?
Oh, he was definitely the era, but whatever.
He was definitely in the era, but still, it's I remember I used to have a big picture of him on my bedroom wall growing up.
Of course.
So
I thought you had a picture of me on your bedroom wall. Oh, here we go. All this time.
You know what? That was when I was very young. I was obsessed with cycling, just cycling, and I was cycling. And then I wanted to get into triathlon. But when I got into triathlon,
all right.
You were definitely my hero.
You're
still
hilarious.
The best race of all time is the Sydney Olympic qualification that you won.
Oh, yeah. That was 99, mate. We are right. Happy birthday for you, by the way, next week.
Yeah, thanks, man.
But
thanks.
Yeah, it's exciting. Big 4-0. Yeah. Here you go. You're going to have to get all mature and growing up.
No, definitely not.
No.
My kids are pretty good at making me not be that. I'm still I'm always told that I need to grow up, so that's
perfect.
As people keep telling me that, I'm happy.
Well, mate, really, really great to catch up. I'm sure we'll catch up even, non-recording show, but I did want to record this one and just hear your energy and feel your energy after such an amazing weekend. So thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing, all of that. All that information's just been wonderful, mate. I really appreciate you.
No worries, man. Well, until next time.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. You can find all the show notes and timestamps and everything else at bennettendurance.com/media.
Thanks a lot for listening. If you enjoyed the show, your support would truly be appreciated. You can visit the Patreon page, or you can subscribe with your podcast app of choice. Don't miss the next episode, so subscribe and be notified. For show notes, if you want to know more, please visit bennettendurance.com. I'm Phil Liggett, and on behalf of Greg Bennett, here's to the next time, and I hope you will join Greg again very soon.